Вот это. Это золотая медаль Барселоны, да.
This is Andrei Perlov's Olympic medal. His daughter Alina is showing it to us because Perlov, a 50-kilometer racewalk champion, is locked in a Siberian detention facility, facing more than 10 years in prison. He stands accused of embezzling over 3 million rubles, around $33,000, from the Novosibirsk football club, where he was managing director. But the 62-year-old has been offered a way out. The investigators will drop all charges if he signs a contract to join the Russian army and go to the front line in Ukraine.
Мой отец отказался подписывать контракт. Для него это будет равнозначно признанию своей вины. Он этого делать не собирается. И в итоге суд.
A new law means that investigators and even defense lawyers are now obliged to offer an opportunity to go to the front line to almost anyone accused of a crime in Russia. Perlov has been in detention center for more than 6 months, and the authorities are increasingly applying pressure to get him to go to the front line.
Должны быть хоть какие-то факты, и этих фактов нет. И поэтому она либо будет продлевать арест, пока либо там не будет наверху принято какое-то решение относительно него, либо пока он не уйдет на фронт.
It's no secret that Russia has recruited its soldiers from prisons, but exclusive BBC analysis can reveal how the initial focus has shifted away from the most hardened and violent convicts.
Не будете отличаться ничем. К вам такое же отношение иногда еще более лояльное, чем к тем, кто меня воюет по много лет. И прошли десятки войн.
Cases like Perlov's are part of a pattern where detainees are being recruited before they have even been convicted of any crime.
Человека берут на трупе. Вот он весь в кровище, труп еще теплый. Вот его берут менты, застегивают наручники. И тут он говорит: «Хочу на специальную военную операцию».
We received a leaked recording of an investigator who pressured a man to join the army before going to court. We have replaced their voice with another to protect the identity of our source.
В нашей статье про ДТП до 3 лет ему грозит. А что за кражу дадут, я не знаю, там суд решит. Его сейчас судить будут по уголовке, а если его все-таки заберут на СВО, он отслужит какое-то время, получит госнаграды, и через полгода госнаграды уже дают, или через 3 месяца, я не знаю. И тогда, то есть, все уголовные преследования, которые на нем числятся с юности, все снимут с него, и эти дела все закроются.
And people do sign up. In March, Yaroslav Lipavsky opted to go to the front line as soon as he turned 18. He was accused of intentionally causing harm to another person alongside others. He died a week later, leaving behind his pregnant girlfriend. The new law introduced earlier this year means both investigators and even defense lawyers are obliged to offer these contracts to almost anyone accused of a crime in Russia. Though turning down the offer may not be easy.
До этого момента мы успели принести заявление на то, чтобы он подписал контракт с Минобороны и отправился на фронт. После отказа и после того, как мы подняли довольно большой шум в местных СМИ, его отправили в карцер. И в карцере ему снова принесли то же самое заявление о том, что он согласен подписать контракт с Минобороны.
After refusing to sign a second time, Perlov was forbidden from seeing or calling his family. Although all criminal investigations are frozen upon signing the contract, this doesn't mean freedom for those who go to the front line. When the recruitment campaign in prison started, convicted criminals who joined the army would get a complete pardon after 6 months' service, if they survived. But the recruit must now serve in the army until the end. That means either until the war is over or until they die. So, why prisoners?
The better part of the Russian force was lost in the first month of fighting.
In the first 3 months, more than 5,000 Russian fighters were killed, many of whom were elite troops.
Then they redeployed for a grinding attritional battle in the Donbass. And then they turned to convicts in order to get an additional pool of manpower.
The recruitment was initially handled by the private military company Wagner and its leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin. Thousands signed up, but until now the exact detail of this recruitment was not known. Together with an independent Russian website Mediazona, the BBC have received and verified confidential documents which shed light on Wagner's recruitment process. To begin with, the focus was only on the most violent criminals from the highest security prisons.
Не один раз за убийство, тяжкие телесные, разбой, грабеж. Нам нужны ваши криминальные таланты.
They want the sort of hardened criminals or the worst of the worst because they're going to be using them in assault units, and the way in which they ultimately ended up employing them was such that it was a one-way ticket for many of the people that chose to sign up with Wagner.
Murderers like Vyacheslav Korches, who burned 2 people alive, and Rustam Valiulin, who brutally killed his own mother and left her to die on New Year's Eve, were recruited to the front line. Neither survived more than a month. Conditions in Russian prisons are often terrible, making the front line seem an attractive alternative.
Российская тюрьма, конечно, вещь очень такая обычно старая, изношенная, с плохим снабжением, с плохим воздухом, с плохой инфраструктурой, но это не важно, не так страшно.
Torture is prevalent in the penal system, so many prefer to take the risk of fighting in Ukraine.
Выбивают показания, явку с повинными, показания на людей еще на свободе, вербовки. Потому что если тебя пытают, и ты подписываешь контракт, да, ты стукач, да, ну, под пытками ты подписываешь, ты выходишь из тюрьмы и говоришь, да пошли бы вы все.
But our investigation reveals for the first time that many more prisoners have died on the front line than was previously believed. The key which unlocks the information is this, a Wagner dog tag worn by every soldier. Each dog tag uniquely identifies each prison recruit, including which penal colony they came from. Our analysis shows that Wagner recruited nearly 50,000 prisoners in just 6 months. Over 17,000 of them were killed on the front line. We studied thousands of entries in chats and forums where relatives of Wagner recruits were exchanging information, and were able to build a map of all the prisons and detention centers affected across Russia. We then compared and analyzed this information with the leaked data and can reveal a clear change in the recruitment strategy from the highest security to the lower level prisons and everything in between, including prison hospitals. The Russian Ministry of Defense took over prisoner recruitment to the front line from Wagner last year. And this is how Perlov has found himself facing being sent to fight in Ukraine.
Когда я видела его в последний раз, это было на последнем суде 17 июля, я заметила, что он сильно похудел. А так он, конечно, держится бодро, он старается там, чтобы мы бодрились и не беспокоились за него. Но я понимаю, что если это будет продолжаться дальше, то есть они будут ломать его, и это не может так длиться бесконечно.
After a career chasing gold medals, Perlov is now trying to avoid a dog tag being placed around his neck. And if he won't go to war, then his family are also desperate to keep him out of prison.
При всем при том, что сейчас пытки из тюрьмы ушли, потому что нельзя портить товар военного назначения. Пытки остаются у тех, кто не идет на войну. Там, пожалуйста, там все, что хотите. А если вы потенциально участник СВО, никто трогать не будет.
Perlov's family say all he did was allow children to train on the football pitches for free, while the accusations against him say any money must have gone into his pocket. We asked the Russian authorities about Perlov's case and whether they are unfairly pressuring detainees to join the army. They did not respond.
Он как считал, то есть он вообще считает, что чем больше людей занимаются спортом, тем лучше. Он фанат спорта, он идеальный популяризатор спорта, он обожает прививать свою страсть другим.
It is difficult to get data from Russia, where the state tightly controls information, so it's not clear how many men like Perlov are being pressured into joining the army.
Do Russians care about convicts or those who are in prison? I suspect that they don't, and I suspect that's another reason why the Russian government turned to them. They likely assume that these are people they can lose, that nobody will miss.
But what we do know is that Russia is no longer taking only most violent and dangerous criminals. Instead, they are now recruiting everyone they can to the front line.